Hi, I'm Kelly at Book and Paper Arts, and I have missed a few posts lately here on YouTube, and that's because I was 2 weeks in Italy. I was in Turin and Genoa. It was beautiful. I learned a lot, and you will not be surprised to hear that I hit up the Turin flea market. I did not get as much as I was expecting or hoping because the prices were higher than I was expecting and hoping, and a lot of things were just not in my budget. But what I did find was choice, and today I'm going to have a look at what's new here in the studio, both from Italy and a few things that are local that I have found here in Wales. I have some free printable scans, and I have some vintage paper history, some trivia, some things that I have just found out recently. And I'm going to share that with you. And at the end, we're all going to be a little smarter. If you like vintage paper and ephemera, if you like altered books and art journals, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and be sure and turn on the notifications. In a previous What's New in the Studio video, I showed these cabinet photos of old-timey weddings. And they have the vintage clothing, the old headpieces, just beautiful things. Well, I have finally made them into printable scans. They are on my website and they are free. So if you'd like to use these and lots of other vintage wedding photos, there's a link in the text below this video. Go get them. By far the best treasure that I found at the Turin flea market was this folio of old letters or handwritten documents. They are from 1731. And you can tell from this stamp that's at the top of each one, where they've used it to make a kind of a handmade letterhead, that these pertain to church documents. I don't know what, as I have no Italian. But the paper itself is exquisite. It's got the deckled edges, and it's got a heavy cotton or linen rag content, which means that, weirdly maybe, this paper that's almost 300 years old is more formidable than paper that's 30 years old. And of course, it's got the extraordinary handwriting. I do sell vintage paper in ephemera bundles. If you are interested, there's a link to that in the text below this video, and the next 5 boxes will have one of these in it. But I think just the next 5 because I want to keep most of these for myself. I'm not listing them individually, but if you think that you can't live without one, send me an email and we'll see. One of the things that was really fun about this bundle was the back page. And this was bound to it. And of course, back then, paper was very precious. So if you had a blank bit of it, you were going to really use it up. And that's what's happened here. Someone has used it for practicing their fancy signature. It's been used as an ink blotter for some accounts. And just plain old doodling. So something like this with doodles from the 1730s just makes me happy. I also acquired quite a bit of religious bibs and bobs, as is my wont. Someone asked me if I could be on the lookout for pieces related to St. Anthony of Padua. So I did. I was. Also related to St. Anthony, I found this. This is a little box. It's made of metal, and that is St. Anthony. And inside of this box, I believe they were meant to hold rosaries, although it would have to be a very small one. So maybe it was meant to hold a relic or something, a medal. But I just love anything shaped like a book. And then there was also this. Let's see if I can show this. It's a tiny little shrine. Now, if you were traveling and you wanted to make your devotion, you might have carried something like this. And again, that is St. Anthony. This is silver in a leather case. And it props up like that. So if St. Anthony was perhaps, you were named for him, you might have this for your devotions, and you could just put it upright like this and then say your prayers. And that is a sweet little piece. I also found these cards, and they are from a First Communion. And this one's from 1942, and it has these scalloped edges. And it's a card that's meant to be made into a wall hanging. And this is another card to commemorate a First Communion. This one's from 1931. And then there were a few more conventional holy cards. I say conventional, but I noticed that when I was buying the Italian holy cards, that some of them, not all of them, had a violent streak that I don't find in the French ones that I collect. There's St. Bartholomew. He had a very bad end. People in Hell. St. Sebastian. And I just think it's interesting that it seems that some countries have different styles and motifs, holy card-wise, because who knew? There's St. Francis Blake. I've got your name on that. And then these two are from the 19th century, probably 1870 to perhaps 1885. And there's one with a Sacred Heart. Then I found this little booklet, and it's about Santa Lucia. Inside, it's from 1903, but inside it's nothing really sexy. But I do like this cover, even though it has water damage and some staining. To me, that just adds to the patina and the story. So what I think I'm going to do with this is make a mini altered book or an altered booklet. And I will keep you posted on how that's coming. I'm also going to do the same thing with this, which is a bank book. I think it's a bank book. It says pension. That means retirement. So this has got something to do with paying into this guy's retirement, I guess. Anyway, I love the stamps. And again, I'm going to turn this into a kind of an altered booklet. I've already started the layouts. In a previous What's New in the Studio video, I showed this science book, this book about physics from 1731. And I pointed out in that video that there are several copper plates with science topics, and some of them have these disembodied hands doing stuff. There's one. Let's see. Here's another with those disembodied hands. Well. The day after I posted the video, I found out that these have a name. They're a thing. They are called manicula, which is the diminutive of the word manus, which is Latin for hand. And you can think it corresponds in English to the word manuscript, which means written by hand. So, hundreds of years before this book was printed, all books, of course, were written by hand. And when you had a page of handwritten text, it was very, very busy indeed. So if you wanted to somehow indicate that some of that text was interesting to you or to someone else, you didn't just underline it. An underline would have gotten completely buried. Instead, you drew or had drawn for you these tiny little hands pointing. And those little hands were a known thing in old medieval manuscripts called manicula or maniculae. By the way, this book is really, really good. If you want to know more about writing, I recommend it. So, go back up. These disembodied hands doing science stuff are a holdover from that time. So now you know. These are called manicula. If you like steampunk, you sometimes see these disembodied hands. So if by any chance you are doing a steampunk trivia quiz in the future, you're going to know what they are called. Manicula. These are some books that I recently acquired here in Swansea. They are collections of the Spectator magazine from 1789. The Spectator is a magazine that is still published today here in Britain, and these would have been editions of the magazine that were then bound together into this book. I have quite a few of them, and some of them are in pretty good shape, and they are for sale individually. But some of them have had it. But that's okay because that means I have permission to take it apart and use it myself. I'm going to use this hand marbled paper. And I love this old paper. It's got the cotton and linen rag content. It's nice and thick. And I'm going to use this for painting on, using some watercolors, and also for backgrounds of altered books and journal arts and collage. I'm also going to be putting in some pieces like this into the ephemera bundle boxes. Another thing that's pretty charming about these books is that they have the old original, the S's, the letter S, Sierra, is shaped like an F, foxtrot. Or is it? I have recently acquired a lot of books from this era, and before then, I had never thought to ask myself why. I mean, I see it all the time, but I never thought why. I found out, and I am going to tell you. Why is it that if it is at the beginning or in the middle of a word, so strictly, looks as though it is faux frictly, but if it's at the end of the word, it is shaped like a conventional S? Here's why. Back in the day when they were printing books early on, they were designing the font on a handwritten print style. And a handwritten S would have looked a lot like this. Now, An S at the beginning of a word, like stone, let's say stone, would have had a serif so that it could connect to the next letter. So the S at the beginning or the middle of the word, if you look closely at the text that I just showed you, that the font on the page, it is not this. It is this, with a serif that only goes out on one side, not bisecting the line. And that was to indicate that that would have been a serif for connecting the letters, which is why you don't have one at the end, because that would have just been a conventional S that did not need a serif to connect it to the next letter. There you go. And you can just barely see the difference between this word, which is same species, only has that cross line going to the left, where a letter like 4 with an F foxtrot has it bisecting. Ta-da! Finally, I have some more printable scans for you on my website. And they are some vintage postcards for spring. These are actually, they're French postcards, and they are actually for the 1st of April. So I am kind of a day out there. Oops. But I do have a couple of others that are for Easter. And these would make really fun projects or journal pieces, and they're free, and they're on my website. You can find out where they are by checking out the link below this video, or by going to my website and clicking on free scans. That's it for today. Please let me know if you have any feedback or questions in the comments below. Check out the text box below this video and you'll find out what's going on here at Book and Paper Arts. And please join me in a few days when I'm going to show you how to make books out of tea bags. You heard that right. Until then, happy making.